title of today's sermon that I had is Oh, the Memories. Oh, the memories. I forgot. How many of y'all have ever heard those words uttered to you? Yes, many a time. Oh, I forgot. If you're a parent, you heard your kids say it whenever, like, why didn't you clean your room today? Oh, I forgot. If you're a teacher, where's your homework? Oh, I forgot. Hopefully, if you're a guy, your wife or girlfriend didn't go, didn't you get me something for our anniversary? That would be dangerous to your health if you said, I forgot. I forgot. I forgot. I know I've said it before. I just can't remember a time when I did. I'm joking. I forgot. I forgot. That sometimes forgetting things can be good. When you're yelled at by a coworker, instead of hanging on to it, sometimes it's good. Forgive and forget it. When you're treated unfairly by a family member, it's good to forgive and forget it. When you made a mistake, and then you won't let it go because you keep telling yourself, oh, how stupid you are. You need to allow Jesus' blood to wash you clean. And then forget it. When you just want to go back to the good old days. Sometimes you need to forget. In fact, Isaiah 43 tells Israel to forget the former things and not dwell on them. So there's definitely times in your life that forgetting things is a good thing. Letting things go is a good thing. Not remembering is a good thing. There's other times it's not the case. And I think it's very interesting, almost ironic, that we have a tendency to forget the things we need to remember and to remember the things we need to forget. The children of Israel found themselves in just that scenario. Numbers 13, verses 25, where we'll start. Moses has just sent out the spies into the promised land. Told them, go check out this place that God's going to give you. Let's see what's really there. Bring back some fruit. We're going to see God's blessing on this place. And we're going to pick up here where the spies come back. This is their report. Some of you I know have actually read this story quite a bit, but this is their report. It says, at the end of the 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. And they came to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told them, we came to the land in which you sent us, flows with milk and honey. And this is the fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak. There, the Amalekites dwell in the land of Negev. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the hill country. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. I'm sorry, I forgot to click it. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses. See, Caleb, it's okay. Caleb interrupted and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Then the man who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. What? I thought there were people that were living there. And all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who came from the Nephilim. And we seem to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seem to them. I think it's interesting that the children of Israel forgot. They forgot something. These are the exact children of Israel, the exact group that God had fought for earlier. These were the exact people that were slaves in Egypt. These were the people that God performed the plagues for. These are the people who saw the hailstones come down on their enemies. These are the people who saw part of Egypt in complete darkness, and they're living in light. These are the people who saw and experienced the Passover, of where they put the blood on their doors and they lived. And yet the Egyptians, firstborn, didn't. They saw this. They experienced this. And they forgot. They forgot. They get there. God had promised them that there's going to be a land of flowing with milk and honey. And what did they say? It is. They carried grapes on their shoulders. Imagine grapes that large. How do you eat those? I know, yes, like one at a time. I don't even know if you can do it one at a time. Anybody got a knife? You know? And they're carrying it back, carrying the blessing of God. Yet, because they saw the giants, they forgot their God was bigger. Isn't that where we find ourselves sometimes? We could actually be walking in the very blessings of God, about to enter into a new dimension or get into new territory, but because we look and that new territory is going to require new things from us, we get afraid and forget what God has already brought us from. These people walked through the Red Sea. They saw their enemy destroyed. There's no way they could have taken any credit for that. Well, actually, I'm the one who held up that water molecule. They couldn't do that. It was all God that moved. And it showed them that God fought for them. These were the people that ate manna from heaven. Could you imagine? I'm going every day to work. What are you going to go do? I'm going to go pick up my lunch. God put it on the ground. And they forgot. We have a tendency to forget the things we need to remember and remember the things we need to forget. It amazes me that yet we're still there. How could they forget the Lord despite such great miracles? Probably the same way many of us forget what the Lord has done in our lives. Isn't it true that there are times when life is difficult and it becomes harder to trust God?
Sure.
The reason I'm not preaching at you, I'm preaching with you on this, because there's times that I think the same thing. Oh man, we got another large bill coming due. God, what are you going to do? Caleb broke his arm. I remember that story. God, he's a $5,000 bill. What are we going to do? How are we going to pay for this? We don't have it. And God came through.
Amen.
And God paid that bill. It didn't cost us anything. He took care of it. But then I have a car problem. Oh God, what are you going to do now? This one going to be harder for you? You going to be able to take care of this one?
Yeah.
You helped me in the past. I don't know if you can do it again. You ever been there? I have. We have a tendency to look at the giants in a land and forget that God has actually already saved us from the Egyptians. It were the Egyptians at that time who were actually the largest, what's the word I'm looking for? Not kingdom. Kingdom, what word I think of? The dynasty. They had the largest dynasty in the world at that time. And God fought them and set them free. And yet, because these other ones looked bigger, they forgot that God could do it. Why do you think it's difficult to trust God and easy to forget how He's already provided for us, or the promises He already declared to us? See, God's not a God that can lie. If He promised that He'll take care of you, He's going to take care of you. If He promised, in this case, they're moving to the promised land, He's taking His children to the promised land. We can trust His promise. Because forgetting can keep us from receiving the promises of God and fulfilling our God-given destinies. How do we remedy this? What are we going to do? What are we going to do that's going to help us hang on to faith when we're seeing giants? Because I once heard it said giants are actually the welcome committee of the promised land. If you see giants in your life, get excited. Because that could actually mean that there's something big about to happen and God's about to promote you. Never expect a promotion without some kind of battle. Why? For two reasons. One, it makes you trust in God again. Oh, I better make sure that I really am following God into this. And two, the enemy doesn't want you to be promoted. He's going to fight you tooth and nail. To think you can go through life without a difficulty is almost, it's not smart. Not smart. The enemy's point is to steal, kill, and destroy your life. That was one of the things we learned in that book study. His job is to take you out. That's what he wants to do. He wants to ruin your reputation. He wants to make you not believe that God's going to come through. And so people do whatever he can. And that means put giants in your life. But if we can figure out a way to remember, the enemy couldn't hold us back before. And God is for me and not against me. He's not going to hold me back again. As I'm faithful to him, he's going to open up doors and going to take out these giants. There's power there. There's power. So we've got to figure out a way to remember. So how do we do that? Almost said I forgot. I didn't forget. I really had to. I'm glad you asked. Let's look at Joshua 4. What's happened so far is Moses has just passed away. They're at the edge of the promised land. I'll rewind even further just in case people don't know the story. That generation that fought God and said, God, we're going to die here. They got to the point it was so bad, they said, oh, why couldn't we even go back to Egypt? Then our children would not die out here in this wilderness. Well, God said, okay then, if that's what you're going to have, that's the way you want to be, you guys will die in the wilderness and your children will take the promised land. That's where we're at now. That old generation has passed away. Moses has left. And Joshua has been put in charge. The man of God's presence. The one who has spent time with Moses in the tent of meeting. The one who spent time with Moses getting the 10 Commandments. This man is a man of his presence. God had already talked to him. God had already told him, be strong and courageous. I am with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. That's the exact phrase Jesus tells us. Isn't that interesting? That's the exact phrase he's told right before he goes into the promised land. Let that sink in. He's telling you that as well today. I will never leave you nor forsake you. There's giants. Get ready. But I'm with you. And we're here. And the directions that Joshua is given are given by God. It says, when all the nations finished passing... Oh, I apologize. I did leave one thing. So what happens... I forgot to put this part in there. You get to the Jordan River. The Jordan River is in flood stage. Happens every so often. In fact, the last time that, according to the commentary I was reading, 1927 was the last time that it happened. Recently. That the snows melt at the top of the mountains. The Jordan River gets extremely wide. It becomes impassable. Every now and then there's mudslides that happen in those areas. And that's what's going on in this scene. They're sitting there, and God tells them, all right, you're about to cross over. And he says to Joshua, I am about to exalt you in the eyes of your brother. And he tells them, let the Ark of the Covenant go first as it's being carried on the shoulders of the priest. And when the priest's feet touch the water, the river will stop flowing. Can you imagine that? Now that's faith. That's faith. Those poor priests. They're probably going, oh God, come through for us, please. Come through. Especially the ones in the front. Because if that doesn't stop flowing, they're gone. And the Bible says that they step out. And when their foot hits, let that sink in. God moves when you move. Sometimes it's going to be until right when you step into what He's doing. But if you're being obedient to Him, He is not going to drop you. He's not going to let you fall.
Exactly.
As soon as He steps out, it stops flowing up here. Now, as I read some of the commentaries, because not everybody believes in miracles, one of them said, well, it must have been a mudslide up further upstream and it stopped the river flow. Well, if that's the case, that's still, in my opinion, miraculous. Because it was at the exact moment his foot touched. And later on, whenever it ended, it was exactly as they walked out, the water started flowing again. So if that's the case, that's still a miracle. But he steps out, the water stops flowing, and they get out to the middle. And God's leading them across. And the priest with the ark stand in the middle, and this entire group of people walk across on dry land, just like their parents had done with the Red Sea.
Yes.
Same kind of miracle. And God gives Moses this great idea. Not Moses, I'm sorry, Joshua. Moses didn't have this idea. God didn't do this because they were moving on to the promised land. But they're in the promised land. And here's what He tells them to do. When all the nation had finished passing over the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, take 12 men from the people, from each tribe of man, and command them, saying, take 12 stones from here out of the midst of the Jordan, from the very place where the priest's feet stood firmly, and bring them over with you and lay them down in the place where you lodge tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel, whom he had appointed, a man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, pass on before the ark of the Lord your God in the midst of the Jordan, and take up each of you a stone upon his shoulder according to the number of tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. So basically, he's saying, okay, there's 12 guys, there's 12 leaders. Each one of you leaders go pick up a huge stone and come to the outside. That's all he's basically saying. But I think it's very interesting. Grab that stone next to the ark. Grab the stone next to the very thing where the presence of God was standing. Grab a stone there. Don't grab a stone downriver. Don't grab a stone where it's easy. Grab a stone where God's presence is and carry it out. When your children ask in time to come, what do those stones mean to you? Then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. It's going to be a memorial. It's going to be a memorial.
Yeah.
But I think it was interesting. It was next to the ark of the covenant where they were supposed to grab the stone. Joshua was ordered to take something from that place of where God's presence was, of a time when God moved, and make a memorial to remind not only him, but their children. Not only him, but their children.
Right.
Just read what's there. In this passage, the people of Israel finally crossed into the promised land. This act is a long time in the making. During the Israelites' journey throughout the wilderness, there were several bumps along the way. The people of Israel at times stopped trusting God, reverted to their old ways. As a sign of his provision, God parted this Jordan River, and they were to use the stones to remind themselves. It was them forgetting what God had done in the past that had led to their complaining, that had led to their rebellion, that had basically led to their destruction. All because they forgot God's promises and God's protection. That God was their God. They forgot that. They sinned. They lost out. This group, their children, were ordered to take something from God's presence and make a memorial that their children could hang on to that said, no, God is with us. We're going to see Him move. Because you have to remember, when they walked into the promised land, the giants didn't miraculously leave.
No.
When they walked into the promised land, those giants were waiting. They still had to defeat the Amalekites. They still had to defeat the Hittites. They still had to defeat the Jebusites. They still had to defeat their own Jerichos. And they could turn back around to this memorial, this stack of rocks, and say, God fought for us there. He's going to fight for us again. If we have got to figure out something in our life that we can look at where the presence of God has been so strong, and when we start to face our giant, look back and go, no, God's presence was here with me. Just because I don't feel Him today, I can still walk on victorious because I know what He's called me to do, and I can do it through His power. So what is your stone going to be? What is your stone going to be? What can you use? Let's think practical for a moment. I know some individuals love to journal. Heather loves to journal. She really likes to journal. And it's been really fun as she's pulled out some of her old journals. She pulled one out maybe a month or so ago. It's probably about a month ago. Might be a little bit longer. And she's like, wow, look at this. This was from the last day that I was in Waxahachie. And it was a prayer of going, God, it would be nice if our house was like this. And it matched perfectly. That's a stone. That's a stone of how God was moving on our behalf. That was a stone that she could look back on and go, I may feel like life is going nuts now and that money may be tight now. But I've got a God that sent me here and loves me enough that He was willing to take care of these little things. That's a stone. It may be the fact that you're going to become a person who journals. Maybe it's a friend that you've told the story to. And that friend needs to remind you. Don't give up. Don't quit. Yeah, you're facing a Jericho, but God promised you that land is yours. Don't know how to fight for you yet, but we know that He's going to fight for you. Because look at your stones. God's been faithful in the past. He won't be unfaithful anymore. God's faithfulness goes from generation to generation.
Yes.
God is a faithful God. Maybe it's a physical item. Maybe you need to go out to your driveway and pick up a stone and write a date on it and say, I remember, and put it in your office somewhere. But I encourage you, find something that's going to remind you of God's faithfulness. Because, like I said earlier, we have a tendency to forget the things we need to remember, but remember the things we need to forget. We need to remember. Too much is riding on it. So, find something that reminds you of the story of God and His faithfulness in your life so you won't stop trusting Him. Go ahead and pray. Father, forgive us for forgetting. Forgive us for forgetting. I know there's individuals even in this room that right now they are standing in front of their Jericho. And they have the opportunity, God, to forget that you've brought them through a Jordan River. They have the opportunity to forget that you have fought for them in the past. They have an opportunity to forget that you've provided for them, that you've brought them to where they are. They have an opportunity to forget the promises that you've declared over them. Help them to remember. Father, help us to remember your faithfulness. Help us to remember that your love for us is overwhelming. Help us to remember that despite the circumstances that we find ourselves in, despite the tiredness that we may feel from jobs we have to go to relationships that we're dealing with, that even in those situations, that you are in control and that we're walking and talking with you. Help us to remember that your faithfulness and love is there, guiding us every step of the way, even in those situations. Help us to remember, Father, that the giants are the welcome committee of our promised land. And that you're teaching our hands to war, like what David wrote in Psalms. That, Father, that you're teaching us to trust you more. And that you're teaching us, God, to learn how to walk out this salvation with fear and trembling. That you're teaching us, God, who we are in Christ. God, you didn't put us in these situations to take us out. You didn't put us in the situation for us to be overwhelmed. You actually, Lord, put us in these situations to actually show us that we're your children and that you fight for us. And that we're stronger than even what we know, because greater is he that is within us than he that is in the world. Father, I'm asking you to help us find our stone. Help us to find our stone. And that we can build a memorial with the other stones that other people around us that bring. So that it's not just your faithfulness to us, but that it's your faithfulness to each one of the members of North Point and to each one of the members of your body. Because the more stones there are, the larger the memorial. We thank you, Father. In Jesus' mighty, mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.